Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Let's see. That should be audio is on. Let's do a camera check. 2, 3, 4. All right. Looks like we already got a couple people on. Hello, hello everyone. So we'll jump right in here because no sense wasting time. If you watched last week, I made a Celtic knot. Is that still handy over there? That Celtic knot on the desk? And I made a Celtic knot using the segmenting material. Thank you. And this is what it looked like. And today I want to show just a couple of different things similar. I was going to do scallops, but you'll kind of get the point of scallops or the picture of scallops as we go through some stuff today. But I want to show you, you can do a lot with this material and blanks, and not even this material. If you just want to use wood, you could do that. So everything I'm doing with the segmenting material, you can replace with wood or plastic or just a sheet of aluminum. So whatever you've got. This is something I really like because of the 3 layers. You can see it gives it like more dimension. It looks like I did 3 times the work, only I did it in one swoop. So it works well for that. Now, so I'm going to be gluing up a couple different things just to kind of give you a picture of what you can do. And this is just really the tip of the iceberg. You can do all kinds of stuff. If you have questions throughout this on YouTube or Facebook, feel free to type them in. And Amy, you got to say, hey-o.
Hey-o, everybody. I'm monitoring the chats.
Amy will relay your questions so that we can get them answered. Because if you ever watched the live streams last year when I was doing them, I had a hard time answering questions because I can't see the screen. The screen is over here, but it's just out of my vision to be able to read the chat because it's so small. Plus there's Facebook and YouTube, so Amy will let me know if you have a question, so feel free.
Lawrence has a question, but it might be about something different.
Let's hear it.
It says, PVC for a mold, do you have to use mold release?
Yes, 100%. The question was PVC, do you have to use mold release? Absolutely. It's more critical with epoxy than it is with urethane like Alumilite, but you want to use it with both. And the more you use PVC molds, the better they become. Somehow stuff starts to come out really easy. Like when you first cast in PVC, it might be a little trick. You have to pound them out a little bit. But after a while, if you use our plugs, the Maker Select plugs, I pull the plugs out and they kind of fall out now. So it's pretty awesome. So the more you use PVC, the better it gets typically, unless it cracks. So yes to mold release. And it can be any question, so that's good. All right, so let me kind of show you what, darn it, I don't need that. What we've got going on. Whoa. Okay.
Full Handmade says, like a cast iron pan.
Yeah, kind of like that. So I'm going to be using my little miter jig again. For doing a demonstration, it's the best way I can do it. You can do this on a table saw or a bandsaw, whatever works. This is just my method. So you can do whatever you want, please. Now, I'm just going to be using some basic wood here. I've got some walnut, and this looks like some flame box elder, so that's good. And I picked blanks that were relatively similar in size. They don't have to be the same, but it sure makes it a little easier. But just like before, dropping everything. Just like before with this one, it'll be kind of ugly. You can grab that if you want. But then when you turn it, thank you. When you turn it, it definitely cleans it up. So the lathe will fix all this ugliness and whatever, but you're just going for a cool look. So this is a really simple, just an X design essentially. But the hard part, I think to a lot, is getting the corners, which I totally understand. So here's one made out of walnut. Now I'm gonna show you how I do this real quick, and then you can take this and modify it however you want. You can change the woods that you're using, you can change the inlay, how you use it, and it'll give you totally different looks in different arrangements, which is really kind of a cool thing. Now, I'm going to do everything in a 45 degree, so my saw is set up 45 and the jig is 45 degrees, so that's what I'm going to use for this. You can change the angle. You'll just have to make adjustments to your pieces, how they fit. So these little triangles I cut off at 45, that makes it really easy to slap them back together. If I changed it, I'd have to adjust, so that's fine. So let's go over to the saw and we will start making some cuts. All right, I'm gonna change the camera. Okay, so like before, I'm going to label the blanks. And this time, I'm not going to just put it on the bottom, I'm going to put it on the top too. And there again, you can use any wood, so it doesn't matter. Okay. And I'm not so much concerned with the rotation like I was with the Celtic knot. I wanted to go in order 1, 2, 3, 4. With this one, it's just more of a visual. If I know I'm cutting 1, I'm cutting 3, and that way I'm 90 degrees. I could obviously figure that out, but sometimes when you're doing this over and over, you go to figure it out and you mess something up. So if you didn't watch last week, this is just a little quick jig I made so that I can cut stuff on the miter saw without getting my fingers near the blade. And all it does is it has a couple of stops, but I'm actually not using the stop. I'm using a mark on my saw. That's my guide. And it has this. Somebody asked why I didn't use a wing nut, and a wing nut would be better, but I didn't have a wing nut. And I wasn't going to drive to the store for one wing nut. So that just holds the blade firmly so I can keep my hand back, and I'm going to make a cut. So I've got my cut there. I'm going to loosen this. And so I'm going to go from 1 to 3, and I'm going to put it in the exact same spot on my saw here. So I'm using that line. I'll lock it down. And I'll make the cut. And I got this little triangle, so I want to make sure and keep track of these. I'm going to set it back there. Now I'm going to take this off, and you can see I've got a perfect 45-45. I don't know if that's what it is called technically. Now I need to cut this little guy. So this one is kind of weird. So this one doesn't really matter where I put it because I'm not using this one for this part. I'm using this just to get the little triangle segment off. So as long as I have enough material and it's the right angle, it'll fit in my piece. So I'm just going to lock it down, make the cut. And I got the little triangle. Let's see how close I was. Pretty darn close. Now, if you lost one of these, you can cut it out of any material, but you'd probably want to do it in pairs. Okay? So, what I've got, if I look at this, I've got my two pieces there. And then these little triangles go right back where we cut them out. So let's go back to the overhead. It'll be easier to see. And what I'm doing is just replacing these right where they were. Now this is where if I wanted to cut another type of wood, I could do that and have those be different. So to get this simple X, I would use one piece fully, and then two pieces partial to make that pattern. Now there are a couple little tricks here that I'll show you next, but if you were doing a scallop or a segment, you would want to do this more towards the end of your blank, or at least the end of your joint, and you might want a shallower angle so it's not so steep. And that's how you would get a nicer scallop like this versus more of what I've got here going with the X. And you can do that exactly the same way. So let me glue this up just to kind of show this process here. It's pretty simple. Okay. So I'm using the segmenting material again. Now obviously if these were grain oriented and I wanted to make sure of the grain, I would want to keep good track of these, but since this is just walnut and I'm not really caring, I won't. The same thing goes. Sand your material, make sure it doesn't have any lips, make sure it's flat. And this is pretty simple. Actually, that piece is way too long. Let's use this little one.
Lawrence asked another question about mold release.
Okay, go ahead, Lawrence.
Can you use WD-40?
No, don't use WD-40.
Can you use Pam cooking spray?
No, don't use Pam cooking spray. WD-40 is for hinges and Pam is for cooking, not for resin. You don't want to mess with chemical compounds when you're dealing with resin. The stuff is too expensive. You're spending too much money on molds and resin to not spend $15 on mold release and buy the proper chemical compound of what mold release is for. So I guess you can do that, but I never would. I'm not going to spend all that time and effort and then use that and have it get messed up. Just not a good idea in my opinion. Okay. So let me show you how I glue this up. It's kind of simple, but there's a couple little things here. So just like before, I put the glue on the wood and I want to spray. I'm going to spray this back here and I just need a little tiny bit on it. And then I'm going to put this on. Now this is the easy one because I don't have to line anything up here. So I'm holding, I like to move my piece around so it doesn't glue it to my little waste block. But you can see I've got it nice and flat. So by holding it with the accelerator, it's going to glue on pretty easily. Now, next step is to glue a piece into here. Now, two things here. You got to have the inside, the part that's matching up to the other segmenting material. You want to have that really flat and clean. So the rest of my piece is kind of jaggedly cut on the bandsaw, which is fine, but this is a nice smooth edge. I hit it on the sander, and that'll line up here really well. If I have a jagged edge, I don't think the camera will show this, but if you have a jagged edge, you're gonna have gaps in there when you turn it, and it's kind of silly because you do all this work and then you have a gap. It's not very cool. So put a little glue in there. I'll spray my piece. And I'm taking strong note of which direction my flat side is, because I want it, let's see, I want it inside. So I'm going right there, pushing it in. So I've got, well, even at that, I got a gap right there. So I must not have pushed it in there like I was supposed to, or maybe I had a little glue in there that I didn't notice from this one, which you do want to pay attention to, and I may have missed that. So lesson learned, you can pop this off and clean that up and redo it. We're going to keep going here just for the sake of the demonstration, but that's something you really want to watch, is that gap, because when I turn that, it's going to have a space there, which isn't cool. So now I'm going to glue on this piece, and the reason being, if I glue on this one next, it's a little easier to line up by itself than if I have a piece of material on it. So I'm going to put the glue, as you can see, 3 and 3. That's why I labeled both. So I'm going to put the glue on here, spray this one, and I'm going to line it up. So as long as I don't touch, until I touch, it's going to not glue. So once it's on there, I can proceed. Now, if I put one of these in here, it should fit perfectly. So there's no gaps or anything, because I cut out a 45 degree, and as long as I did everything flat and straight, it's 45 degree. Now maybe you can see that little gap in the material right there. It's hard to get on the camera. That's the gap I'm talking about. See how terrible that is? And that was just carelessness when I was pushing those together. But had I not done that, this is a perfect, like it's laying in there perfectly. So imagine if I had cut some other cool material, I would have that perfect inlay right there of a different color, which looks really cool. Because what we're filling in is this right here. This is the triangle. So when you see it round, if I had this cool red color in there, this whole side would be red right here. So it's kind of neat to be able to do that. Now, I can go ahead and glue that one in if I want. It doesn't matter from here, but the trick was glue your main one, your long one, the short, then the other end, and then now I want to glue in this one. And what I'm going to do is I've got a nice flat edge here, and I can see that I've got a little glue there. So I'm just going to carefully clean out that little bit of glue. And if I wasn't doing a demo, I might use sander or something, I don't know, but I'm just going to use this X-Acto since I'm here. And by having this ability to look at this first, I can make sure there's no gaps. So that looks good. So, same old story, glue on this side. I'm going to put plenty of glue down in there. Spray the metal. And I'm going to set it in. I'm going to kind of squeegee it down into place. And that way I got all the glue off of this side. So that one glued up really nice. And you can see my metal sticking out. Unlike before where I had to clean those up each time, because of this, because of the way I'm gluing this, I don't have to. Now the easy part, these should both fit in here just perfectly without any gaps. And I'll put some glue. I'm not watching the grain line on this because I don't know that it had anything I was concerned with. And this is the main thing, I just want to line it up side to side so it doesn't have a big space on one side or the other. And that looks pretty perfect, there's no gap at all. So as long as everything's square and lined up on your saw, this should go really easily.
Is that CA glue medium or thick?
This is medium because that's what I had sitting here. I probably would prefer thick, but I didn't go get any. So there, just hold it for a few seconds. And that is your X. So other than that one gap issue where I didn't pay attention, everything else is a perfect lined up square. And this ugly mess is exactly how this looked. And I just rounded this on the sander. And you can see it'll clean up really nicely. Now the key, I think, to this I guess looks cool, like, if you want to say so, but the key, once you turn this, would be having different colors. So you could either have a different wood here, or the sides be different, and that's how you can really add accent. Another good thing to do is, depending on what pen you're making this for, is to add accent lines. So you can have an accent line or two even on one end or the other or both, and it really adds dimension to this. It makes it look really complex. And you can see from that glue up, it's really not hard to do, it's just cuts. Now, we were talking about scallops, so let's glue a couple of those up here. So I'm going to go back to the saw. Change mic. All right, so I'm going to load this guy up on number 1. So let's see. Got a lot of dust on this thing. We'll call that 55. Now this is where you might want to use a different saw, because this thing takes off a good 1/8 of an inch, this blade, maybe more. So I actually don't even have much left here. So jump into 3. So I've got the same thing, just a different angle. And I'm just going to cut some pieces off here that match. And this box elder is not the best choice for this, but for demonstration purposes it'll work. You probably want to use something a little more hard. Well, I saw my piece move there. I didn't have it tight, I guess. So we'll have to see if it's going to hold tight on me. Maybe. maybe not. Interesting. Okay. So the main thing here is when I do these scallops like this, I like to cut them off and then have a segment. So I would glue these in. I wouldn't be super concerned about the appearance or the lineup down here because I'm going to trim that. But I'm going to have one on each side. And then I'm going to trim that off. Maybe this is, no, that's the right way. These look just weird. So that's what I'm going to do here. Oh, I got it.
I was like, coming in.
Coming in hot. Okay. So let's glue these on and we'll go through the steps here to show you how that works. So again, glue on the wood. And you can do it the other way around, it doesn't matter. It doesn't care. I'm going to spray this one. And then I just don't want to stick the tip of this out very far. So I just want it to be right to the end-ish of that because I want the next one to be able to have room right like that. Okay. So I'm going to glue that one on. Spray that guy. And same thing near the end but not to the end. Here's putting little wings on it there. Now, I don't have a particular alignment for these because they don't really go any particular direction. But we want to make sure that our material is at least covering both sides to where there's enough meat on there to leave the material. If I slid this way up here, I would lose the material, so I want to make sure and have enough room. Okay. Whoop, almost did it. There we go. So that ugly mess is the start of something good. Now, we're going to go back over here to this. Let me spray this a little bit. So I do like to give it a little coat. If I was not sure, if I thought maybe I had a problem, I could always take the thin CA and put it around the joints so it would soak down in there and drip all over. Let that soak in a few seconds and then spray it. You can see the box elder just soaked up that thin like a sponge. So it's not ideal, but it works. Okay, now this thing is ready. The only thing I want to make sure of is that my clean side that I glued against is down on that saw. Okay. So I'm not using this for the jig's sake. Actually, turn this back. This is just for the cut. And this is good because I can put that wing back behind my fence without it getting in the way. I'm going to lock that down nice and tight once I get it lined up. Lock this guy down. And I am going to hit my jig here, but this is all for waste for cutting, so it doesn't matter. I like to look to make sure I didn't have it too shallow to where it wouldn't cut through. So you can see now, clearly something's off here because I bet it was where I said that move. Remember I said it moved? I think when I didn't have it tight and it moved, it shifted because this side is narrower. If you look at the brown, the walnut, this side is narrower than this side, meaning that the cut went a little out. So that could be where it went. Now, from a pen standpoint, I don't think that'll make it look bad. The only way to know is to turn it. Oh, good call. The only way to know is to turn it, but we're going to proceed. But I think just that little movement, and if you were watching, you probably saw it move when I was cutting. It just kind of went, whoop. That probably caused that. So that's the only thing I can think of. Sorry, Amy, I'm dropping stuff like crazy. Thank you. All right, I can get rid of some of this stuff. So this is how this would be. Whatever material I wanted to glue onto it, which I don't really have anything picked out. Just need something with a nice flat edge. We will do the same exact glue up method. Just to recap, I don't think I mentioned it, I'm using the segmenting material. We have this on Turner's Warehouse. That's my favorite thing to use. I'm using mercury glue. You can use any glue. Mercury is just my favorite. And I'm using accelerator with it, of course. So I'm going to put the glue on this side. Doesn't matter, I could put it anywhere. But you can see I'm going to glue up all these joints in here, so that's not a bad thing. I'll spray this one. And then I'm going to make sure this flat side is down, just for my own sake of gluing. And you can see all that squeeze out of the glue all the way around, so that thing got lots of glue on it. And that is glued up. Now, this you would glue your material. Probably the best thing would be to take a piece of this wood and cut it and glue it on there, and that way it had a nice continuation. But for the sake of this, let's use this one. And I'll cut and turn this tomorrow so we can see how it looks. Got one last glue up here. All right. So this looks like a total mess and nothing, but if I got enough material and I got these into the middle, which I may have needed to pull them in a little more for distance, when I turn this I might lose a lot of that white, but it just gives you an idea how you can do different designs. So your angles will make a big difference, your material will make a big difference because you're going to see that big scallop on the side, that big round part. But when I turn this down, I might have made these too small. I won't know until I do it. I want to be sure and drill really center because it looks weird if you have one side with a lot of white and one side with a little white. You want to make sure and center it up as much as you can. But this is just to give you an idea of how you can glue up some crazy cool stuff that will look really good. I really like the straight segments. I showed a pen last week that had a couple of them, one on each end. And it looks really good. So you could add that here. If this was going to be your pen blank in the middle, you can add a couple straight lines just for extra accents, and it would look really good. So this I'll post pictures of tomorrow. Let's go ahead and turn this one down just to get a better idea of how it looks. Anything else question-wise, Amy?
Not really. Okay.
Alright. This stuff out of here. You can spend a lot of time gluing up blanks to get really cool patterns. So if you like pens you see, just kind of evaluate how they did their glue up, and you got to kind of do it in reverse. And it's weird doing it in a square form for a round result, but it's pretty easy, and it starts to come to you pretty fast once you have done it a few times.
How many scallop pens or segmented pens do you think you've made over the years?
Oh, I don't know. I do more flats than anything. I think they look cool, but quite a few. A lot of, in the beginning, I did a lot with single line material, like aluminum from like cans. The other thing I used to always try to get was like old gift cards, because that plastic was like thin and perfect. But now you can get segmenting material that's way better, so it's so much easier. All right, that should be good enough to give us a good view and a simple X, but it's a cool, you get that cool side scallop look. I don't think I would ever do this alone. This would be with some other accents, like the lines. You might do this twice in a row with different materials in the middle. So you'd almost have a diamond of a different color. That would look really cool. But this by itself is kind of just like, eh. But if you start changing up the woods or the materials in general, you can get some really cool patterns. And you can see this one is a little off because this side is smaller than that side by just a tiny bit. Well, maybe just barely. Yeah, I think so. But that is
Bob has a
simple
question.
scalloping. Wait, Bob who?
Bob H.
Okay, not Bob R.
Is a negative rate cutter head preferred?
Yeah, that's what I was just using here. You could do it with a regular carbide or traditional tools, but having 3 different materials here, plastic, metal, and wood, negative rake's the easy way to go in my opinion, because you're not going to have to worry about it catching or being too aggressive, so it's really easy. So yes, it's preferred. Not 100% necessary, but much helpful. Much more helpful. Yeah. And we'll keep, if everybody likes these segmenting ideas, we can keep kind of every now and then do one where we just kind of build on the one before, because that's how this came about from last week. The Celtic knot's really cool, but it's, you can change it by changing the angles, but it's kind of just still a Celtic knot. So we can keep adding elements if everyone likes this.
Or if there are things that people want to see, shout them out. Or type
Shout them out. Yes. All right. Well, that's all I've got for today. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please make a comment or something so we know that you're into this or not into it. If you're not subscribed on YouTube, please subscribe on YouTube or follow us on Facebook. That's where we're putting these both out right now for live streams. And if you have ideas, like Amy said, if you have ideas for topics you want, let me know. It doesn't have to be turning. It could be like making blanks or prepping stuff. But I'm happy to do a variety of things. It's fun to have ideas to work on because then it might be something I don't do every day, which is good. Or it's funny, a lot of stuff I used to do a lot of in the old days, like years ago, but I don't do it very much now for whatever reason. So it's fun to revisit stuff. You always want to make new stuff, so I think you stop doing what you're doing, even if you're liking it. So, all right, that's all I've got. I will give the delay here 2 seconds. Just so you guys know, there's like a 15, is it 15 seconds, 20 seconds?
One of them is delayed more than the other one.
So there's a little delay, so I don't want to say any questions and then cut it off and 15 seconds later a question pops up. But anyway, hope you like it. Let me know. We will see you next time. All right.
I think we're good, that's right.
Will you click the next line down there where the mouse is? I'll wave us out. Nope, go down. Where it says stream is over, the other way. Right there.
Right here?
And then hit end record.